In today's podcast, I sat down with Lindsey Neuren in Austin, Texas. She's a top producing agent that's been in the business for just about a decade. How she got into the business from non-for-profit in New York City and going back to her roots in Austin, Texas, her story, her team, her success are something that real estate agents should strive to be. And if you're a buyer or seller in the Austin market, a lot of our clients are coming from Austin, Texas. You really want to get to know Lindsey and her business. Take a listen. All right, Lindsey, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Tell everyone whereabouts you're located.
So I work in Austin, Texas, which happens to also be my hometown, where I grew up. So I sell in Austin and then surrounding suburbs of Austin.
Okay, and in your business, is it primarily buyers or sellers that you're working with?
It depends on the market. Right now I'm about 50% buyers, 50% sellers. So it kind of fluctuates a little bit with how the market's performing, but I work with both buyers and sellers.
And when did you get into the business?
I got my real estate license about 8 years ago, sort of a second career. After moving back to Austin from New York City, I was there for about a decade in a completely different industry. I was in the nonprofit world and made a career change into real estate about 8 years ago.
Okay. Why the change? Going from non-for-profit and definitely real estate's for-profit.
Yeah, well, that wasn't really the sort of I really I was actually in the fundraising world, so actually there's a lot of transferable skills. It's all relationship based. It's all like building relationships, nurturing relationships, having tough conversations, right? It's all people and relationship based. So actually there's a lot of similarities with real estate. And so I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I wanted to do something where I owned my own business. And I loved, I kind of realized as soon as I moved back to Austin, I love showing people around Austin. I love helping like touring and providing context on the different neighborhoods. And I wanted to do some, I knew I wanted to do a career change, and I knew I wanted to do something that was very people focused and where I was able to build relationships. And so real estate was, after I bought my house, right, through my realtor, I kind of realized, oh, this could be a really interesting career. And I sort of took a leap of faith and got my license.
And the non-for-profit world, a lot of relationship building, a lot of networking.
Fun. I was in the fundraising world of the non-world, and so it's a lot of similarities in the sense that you're building relationships with very affluent people, and you're having conversations around asking for money for the specific nonprofit that I was working for. So actually has a lot of similarities, and you have to have strategies going into those, and who are you going to be asking for donations, or are you doing sort of campaigns? So there's actually a lot of like marketing aspects to it as well, which translates well into real estate.
Being away from the Austin market for 10 years and then going back, I mean, you have your sphere of influence because you grew up there, but did you find it difficult to get into the real estate business and get productive right away?
Yeah, I mean, I think like any new agent, regardless, I have a great sphere, right? I have a great network in Austin, but there's like almost 20,000 agents in Austin, right? It's a pretty infiltrated, saturated market. I do think I'm third generation Austin. My dad was born and raised in Austin. My parents both went to UT. Like my knowledge of Austin runs very deep. But like any new agent, it's tough to kind of get your foot in the door. So I actually, started working my sphere. I kind of had like 3 different pillars. I started working my sphere. I started using social media to gain traction with really specifically targeting buyers and targeting a lot of first-time home buyers who were at a very similar stage in life than I was at that time, right? Buying their first house, navigating the market. And then I also did online leads. And so the online leads helped me kind of get my foot in the door a little bit as well. And I found that once I was able to meet someone, it was very easy for me to be able to offer the type of knowledge, like a deep knowledge of Austin, that I think a lot of people that are not from here don't necessarily have that kind of like street by street knowledge.
Yeah. What's going on in Austin? I hear about it a lot. A lot of people are moving to the area. A lot of our clients here in Cabo are coming from the Austin area.
Yeah.
What has happened in
You
the
know,
last?
we're having a very interesting market. We were the hottest market for, 10 years, right?
Mhm.
From 2010 until 2022, we were, on fire. And we had a lot of people move here for COVID, just kind of in record numbers. And we're starting to see, in the last, I would say 18 months, we've seen a slowdown in the market and we've seen some stabilization, which in my opinion was very much needed. Just from an affordability perspective, we needed the prices to come down. And some of that has to do with interest rates going up. But we had a lot of people move over COVID. We're seeing some people leave Austin, just for lots of different reasons. I have clients leaving for new job opportunities, or they actually want to move to smaller markets. So I have clients that are moving to Asheville, North Carolina, and Boise, Idaho, and Boulder, Colorado, and Santa Fe, things like that, smaller markets. I think just because people can work remotely, they have a lot more options of where they can live. But
Mhm.
we've had a tough market, and I will tell you though, it does depend on the neighborhood. Like we have a lot of micro markets within Austin. You could have a complete, buyer's market in one neighborhood and go to another neighborhood, and it could be a seller's market. It just depends on really for the big pattern is the schools. So the strong schools have kind of held value very well versus areas with maybe not as strong of schools.
So for you, are you just a solo agent or do you have a team?
So I run a team. It's myself and my business partner. His name is Ross Speed. So we work together on a lot of deals. Some deals we have our own clients, but we run our team. And so we have our business sort of here. And then we have actually 25 producing agents under us. Now those agents, we keep our businesses pretty separate. So those agents, they're not new agents. They're more probably 2 to 5 years in the business, really looking to to grow their business. And so we're providing more, I would say, high level support
Yeah.
for them as they're kind of trying to go from like the new agent to like a more seasoned agent. But they don't work with our clients. And so our clients only know me or my business partner or my assistant, but they don't actually know any of the agents on our team. So we're a little bit of a non-traditional team model.
Okay. And how long have you been running a team?
So I started my team pretty early on. I was probably year 2 or 3. And it was really more like I brought on an assistant. Once I got really busy, I brought on an assistant, and then I brought on one buyer's agent, right?
Mhm.
And then it sort of evolved from there. My business partner, we merged teams about 2.5 years ago. So we've been business partners for about 2.5 years.
And what challenges do you see in the market if you're a buyer and also if you're a seller in Austin?
Yeah,
Excuse
so right
me, Austin.
now the challenge really for buyers is interest rates. There's lots of choices, there's lots of inventory. We're seeing some multiple offer situations on houses that I think are priced really well and look perfect and are move-in ready.
Yeah.
But the majority of homes are not going into multiple offers.
Mhm.
So lots of choices, lots of, flexibility and time to make their decision, but interest rates is the piece that's tough. And so really what we've been doing is working with our lenders to make sure that like they are running full scenarios. Like if we do this type of rate buy down, we're doing rate buy downs a ton.
Yeah.
What does that look like if we go after a seller paid rate buy down? And trying to really help them dig into the numbers, before they necessarily put a bid in, to understand, how those rate buy downs can really help. I think people just sort of assume with high rates that they have to pay X, and they don't really understand the advantages of the rate buy downs until they get into digging through the numbers.
Hmm.
So there's some hesitancy, I think, on the buyer end,
Yeah.
right? Even though we are fully in a buyer's market. So it's interesting because when we were fully in a seller's market, buyers were hesitant. And now they're hesitant because of interest rates. But if they actually dig into the numbers, they can get a very good deal on homes. And then sellers, I feel like there's a couple dynamics going on with sellers here. One, I think a lot of sellers are in very good financial situations where they have got 3% interest rate or lower, and they've got equity, they've got appreciation, they're in great situations. So they don't really have to sell, which I completely understand. And so with a lot of my clients, we are listing, we're trying to sell it. And if we don't get quite the price they want, we're leasing it out. And for most of my clients, it's not an issue. And they're sort of waiting this out to potentially sell in a more advantageous market.
Mm-hmm.
Others, I would say, are more sort of, they really want to sell and they're kind of willing to negotiate. So I'd say I'd kind of working with two different sellers. But it's been interesting. I feel like there's definitely been some listings in this market where it's priced correctly, it looks great, and it's still not selling. So to give you an idea, but I would say we're in a buyer's market for sure.
In the Austin, and are you servicing all of Austin or just particular neighborhoods?
So Austin's not very big. It's only about a million people, 1.5 million if you include the suburbs. So it's not nearly as big geographically as somewhere it's like Houston or Dallas. So we service all of Austin. The only thing I don't do is I don't do ranch land. So if someone wants to buy like a ranch, or if they
Mm-hmm.
want to buy land, I don't specialize in that. But I do condos, and I've sold lake property, and I've sold a lot of single family homes. Obviously, I don't do any commercial.
Okay. And based on it being a buyer's market, are prices then overall dropping in Austin, or are they stable? Are they still going up?
Pretty stable. They're pretty stable, and I think that shows the resilience of the resale market. Like there's a lot of inventory coming on, but a lot of that inventory, those sellers are not like that motivated to drop the prices, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
we have high inventory, but not necessarily a ton of price drops. We are seeing that, I think what all the numbers, predict this year that we're going to kind of have a 0% year. So essentially, we're not going to be really up or down. We're going to kind of have a wash of a year. Whereas last year, depending on the neighborhood, we could be down 5%, or we could have been down up to 20% in specific neighborhoods. The driving force behind the like 20% is really new construction. New
Mhm.
construction, is driving the price down in some neighborhoods. As you can imagine, they're more motivated to sell.
Yep. Let's talk about your business. You have your own personal production, 25 agents. How many units are you selling personally and your team, and what does that represent in terms of sales volume?
Yeah, so my business partner and I sell between 80 and 100 million a year. 80 would say, the market's not super strong, but we've sold up to 120 million a year when we had a great year. And then our team is probably going to sell another, I would say, 200 to 250 million in sales. So it depends. We have agents that are selling more in the $8 million range, and we have agents selling in the closer to $20 million range. So our agents are all, producing full-time agents. And so, I would say we've got a kind of a wide range, but very strong producers. So we'll produce over 300 million this year in Austin.
And is that an up year or a down year compared to?
It's an okay year. Probably comparable to last year, is what I would say. It's not as strong as, probably not real years,
Yeah.
to compare to. So those were just COVID years. It was pretty chaotic here.
Right. And for you and your business partner, what's the direction you're wanting to move the team?
Well, I think we don't want to be a super large team. I think we're going to probably end up capping around 30 agents at the most. We're really interested in quality over quantity. So we would love in the next year or two to have 30 producing agents above 10 million. So they're all producing a minimum of 10 million up. And potentially have some what I would call senior agents on our team that are kind of our top producers. So for them, I think we provide leads for them. We provide online leads similar to how I started my business, and they do extremely well in Austin, just given our kind of like the demographic in Austin is very young. A lot of first and second time home buyers, very millennial Gen Z type of market. And we also provide a lot of operational support to them. So they're not having to go and hire a contract to close coordinator, or hire an assistant, or hire a marketing director. Like we have all that out in-house on our team, on our operations team.
To our agent audience, a lot of our agents on our team or people that follow us, our listeners, um, it's a flat or a down market right now. And so for you, running a team and your own personal production, what kind of advice would you give those agents?
Yeah, I mean, it's mentally a tough time to be an agent for sure. I try not to get involved in the noise, right? I try to kind of understand what's happening economically in the market, but not necessarily get caught up in, I would say, sort of like the negative energy of the market. So I focus on kind of what I can control, which I can't control interest rates. I can't control what decisions buyers or sellers make right now, but what I can control is providing my clients with all of the information they need to make decisions, making sure I'm super transparent and ethical and have a lot of integrity in my business. I really like to play the long game. I want to have a strong reputation. I mean, I would also recommend, I think, just fiscally, making sure you set up your life in a way that is conservative when it comes to how much money you're spending and what your lifestyle looks like, because you could be doing really well one year and then you could have a down year and you need to set your life up to accommodate both of those situations. But just focusing on what you can control. I also think for some newer agents, I think joining a team is a really good idea. I think we've had a lot of agents come to our team because they've struggled individually, which is completely normal, especially in this market.
Yeah.
And they're individual agents, right? We are not micromanaging them. We're not managing their day. We're not telling, we're there to support them, but they're running their business themselves. And so
Yeah.
I think those kind of things I would focus on if you're struggling in the business is finding the right team
hmm
to potentially join.
Lindsay, I find in these down markets that I end up working a lot more. Have you been
Oh yeah.
finding that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've talked to my business partner about this at length. I feel like I'm working twice as hard and producing twice, like half, right? But I understand that is needed in this market. And I think I want to talk to as many people as possible. I can control that. I can talk to as many people as possible. Some are going to work out, some are not. And I think some other advice I talk to our agents about is like not riding the real estate roller coaster, like getting off the roller coaster. So there's so many highs and lows, and you're just like this all the time. You're riding the high and you're riding the low and trying to keep yourself emotionally sort of level, just
Mhm.
because there's a lot of great things that happen. There's disappointments and they happen every day,
Yeah.
right? So trying to kind of take those a little bit with a grain of salt and learn from them.
How do you balance the work and personal life? I mean, you're married? Are you married?
I'm married. I have two kids. My daughter is 5 and my son is 8.
Uh-huh.
So we live a very busy life. I would say I'm an early riser, so I get up early. I get up around 5:30. I try to give myself about an hour to myself, and then I work out early. And then I get my kids to school or camp. They're in camp now. And my entire day is structured. So I do a lot of calendaring around work blocks.
Mhm.
I'm spending probably 30 minutes a day in my CRM and I block that on my calendar. And anything that really needs to happen, I'm making sure is in my calendar.
Right.
Um, I try to shut off around 5:30 so I can really, have dinner with my kids and put them to bed. And then if I need to get back online at 8 o'clock, I will, depending on what's going on. Something else I do is I try to delegate as much as I can in my personal life, because our job is so hectic and we work very non-traditional hours. Anything that I can delegate out in my personal life, I do, and I try not to feel the mom guilt, I guess you would call it,
Yeah.
around not being the perfect domestic wife, because that's just not who I am. I'm not going to do laundry. I have someone to do it because I have a better use of my time as working. Cooking, things like that. Like I just try to delegate out as much as I can for things that I don't enjoy or I'm not good at. And I try to basically spend all my time working or with my kids.
Yeah.
Um, but it's tough. I mean, it's definitely a constant balance. I have a full-time assistant, so that's something I would recommend agents that are thinking about having children or thinking about like, what type of support do you have? I have a full-time assistant who helps me show after 5 o'clock and on the weekend, so I can spend time with my kids and I don't have to miss the soccer games and things like that. So my clients know when they work with me that my assistant will show property after 5 o'clock or on the weekends.
Do you ever get time to go on vacation? What does that look like?
I do. And I actually, that's a big reason why my business partner and I merged teams, is because we could not go on vacation. We were both growing teams and it was, impossible. So he's in the same phase of his life. He's got a wife and 2 young kids. And so what we do is we just really try not to travel at the same time.
Yeah.
And so one of us is always here, and which is nice because I actually was able to go on a trip to Portugal last summer. And it was the first trip since I started real estate that was like a 2-week, like true trip, right? And I actually shut my email off, which I had on my phone. And I had my assistant checking my email and like forwarding, and I had all these systems in place, right? I let all my clients know, but they know my business partner, Ross. He was sort of managing everything. I went in a typical kind of slower time, and I didn't have a lot of listings. Like in August, we're a little bit slower. And he was able to kind of take care of my buyers. He's so great and he does a great job and I fully trust him. And honestly, my husband was shocked. I didn't bring my computer. I didn't go on my email. It was really nice. And I'm hoping to do that like once a year. And then I return the favor for him.
Right.
So he can relax. So we just try not to travel at the same time. And he is Christian and I'm Jewish, so we honestly do not celebrate the same holidays. So it's kind of nice. We didn't really think about that. We partnered, but it's nice because I will take Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur off.
Yes.
And he will cover and I will cover for Christmas and Easter. So it is kind of nice because we don't celebrate the same holidays. And so
Right.
we're able to cover for each other in a way that I think we didn't really think about before, which is great.
Lindsey, have you ever been to Cabo?
I have a long time ago, so 20 years ago, but yes, I have been to Cabo.
20 years ago. A lot of our clients are in your area, in the Austin market, and
Love Mexico.
yeah.
Well, Texans love Mexico. I mean, I never grew up going to the Caribbean. We always went to Mexico. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
if you ever make your way out to Cabo, let me know, and I look forward to staying in contact because a lot of our markets cross each other.
Yes.
Clients that are in Austin wanting to sell a property or that want a second home in Cabo or somewhere in Mexico. So.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, we have direct flights now to Cabo. So that's been really helpful that we got probably 5 years ago. And it's definitely become popular. I know people that own second homes in Cabo or maybe split their time with Austin and Cabo. So it's definitely a popular place to go from. I'm sure your feeder market is probably mostly California and Texas, I would assume.
Big markets, yeah. Number one is California. Texas is probably second or third on the list. Yeah. But yeah, the southern, western states of the United States are most popular markets. But it's interesting because we're getting clients from the East Coast. I know you know Gretchen. She has. We have clients in her area. We did a referral recently to her because they need to sell to buy here.
Makes total sense. Yeah. I mean, yes, I know that it is something that people, they either want Texans for a second home. They either want that mountain house, right? They either want the Colorado, Utah place to ski, or they want Mexico. So I feel like you definitely see those kind of two choices depending on if you want ocean or mountain.
Or if you're privileged, you get both.
I guess so, yes. Or you're older. I think too, that older demographic that has the flexibility, to be able to travel. I think when you're kind of in that school schedule, it's tough, right? You have to be back for school starting and things like that. So we're definitely in the school schedule world.
Yeah, myself included. I have 2 kids also. So, Lindsey, I really appreciate the time from your taking it out from your busy day. I wish you all the best, and let's stay in touch and hopefully do some business together.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, Lindsey. Bye-bye.
Bye, Nick. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nick Fong Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Ronival Real Estate and follow Nick on Instagram at NickFong_Ronival. Ready to find your Baja dream home? Check out the latest property listings at Ronival.com or findmexicohouses.com. Hasta luego.